Hello everyone, welcome to the Wizard Way Daily Tarot. Tonight we're burning the midnight oil, doing a night reading instead of our usual early morning. If I like it, I may transition to night readings. Honestly, it's more my style. Theme of our talk tonight, I've had a few ideas, mixing it up rather than doing a standard structural read. Vigilance is first card out of the deck. More of a conversation, I think, is needed as far as being a pagan, an occultist, a witch, a wizard, or, to be honest, even a believer. I think in this day and age of artificial intelligence, I spent the last 2 years essentially focusing mainly on scientific and mathematical rigor in my frameworks. It was an effort that largely unrewarding. My work hasn't been essentially accepted, I feel like, either by the pagan or occult communities, nor the scientific academic communities. However, I do feel like I've very effectively managed to straddle that line and operate on the edges of essentially the established systems. And in that, we have the Nine of Wands. I've learned what it takes essentially to take a sort of new stand, I think, in our day and age of not from a source of belief, but in a source of understanding of mechanisms, of experiences, of their value to us. The thing that I've never understood about those who are critical of the occult is the lack of the question specifically in regards to just why do we go to these lengths? Why do we commit ourselves fully to paths that, to be blunt, are simply unacceptable by society's standards? If we were Christians, we would not receive the amount of scrutiny that we receive. The animosity that we receive from academia, I think, is one of the main things that comes up for me right now. But that being said, there's something else that guides us, that pulls us, that draws us through. There's something more powerful, sometimes even more so than we can even understand, than we care to even discuss out loud, because it's the potency of our private experiences, the effectiveness of these methods. And one thing I found very specific almost across the board is that occultists and magicians that are widely known are very keen and almost eager to throw the entire system under the bus, without ever taking account for the fact that, and quite honestly, these paths and these ways do enhance one's life and bring an incredible amount of value to it. The personal reward of living a life that is active and true and authentic to one's being and who they are is priceless. The Ace of Cups. And if anyone would truly understand that our grail, the reward of our deepest soul desires and longings that come at the full tests and ordeals, trying our souls at the very edges of existence, but to the most fulfilling rewards imaginable. It comes to mind that I've had many times over the last 5 or 6 years where waves of extreme doubt have come over me, not specifically as to whether or not my choices were correct for me, but more as to if they were worth it. And now, having walked this specific path for the better part of 2 decades with very little encouragement, I can say that it is absolutely worth it. The freedom of being is absolutely worth it. The Knight of Wands. How to light the wildfire. I don't know why. Perhaps it's this evening scenario, this new environment, the other side of a long and arduous quest that brings me to discuss my own personal experiences in greater detail. But I came to this path from an already unaccepted culture. I was raised Mormon. I was born and raised in Utah. And I know exactly what it means to stifle and suppress every instinct. How to calculate every word and every phrase that you come off exactly pitch perfect in order to be accepted. And over the last 20 years, ever since renouncing that religion and continuing on my own self-forged path, I've been very conscious of never sacrificing that specifically. When I could tilt the edges of fate in my favor, so to speak, by getting the charismatic pass, I never stepped out of the way of conflict, of contradiction. And despite the fact that this led to many battles, as I wrote about in Excalibur, it's often in the realization of one's enemies or what one stands against that one also learns more truly and more deeply who they really are. And I've taken my stand, and I don't regret a minute of it. That's the truth. Princess of Discs, bringing Kether into Malkuth. It's been a long time since I've spoken openly in this manner. And I think that's for a reason. Just today I reopened the Academy of Magic Arts and Sciences. I am taking on new students. I am now instructing, and the system now is much, much stronger than it was before. Having progressed it beyond the limitations of some of the systems that I was taught and came up through, I now feel like I've anchored into a very concrete, mathematically precise, and objective system. I founded it upon invariance, never ontology. In fact, I believe ontology is perhaps one of the greatest downfalls of humanity. The over-attribution of value to meaning. But meaning is self-generated. It's not the meaning we're after. We're after realization. The moment that things click, when your skin lights up with electricity, when everything comes together, when the recursive deterministic factors compound and become unavoidable. When one's presence becomes an inevitability as opposed to happenstance simply by the gravity and weight of the decisions and the experiences carried by one who chooses to fully walk our path. And to those of you that have taken this path of the moon through these last few years in our society, I applaud you as brothers and sisters and friends and kin. It doesn't matter where we came from. It doesn't matter what we believe. What matters is who we are and what we stood against. Because if you're still here right now watching a tarot reading from someone like me in the middle of the night, then you are a very unique individual. Someone who is able to see beyond the simple veils of performance, especially in the guise of identity. And our day in the sun is coming, the 9 of Cups, our wish, our fulfillment. We are not hobbyists. We are not toying with powers and forces we do not understand. We're the ones that tested it when everybody else tried to make it a joke. We're the ones who found out, who are the ones who put our results in pen and ink and blood. We're the believers. And our belief in this age has made our will ironclad and solid, not too for. And so I leave you here tonight with a new message. Something that's been stirring in me for a very long time. And now, having crossed to the other side, I believe I can say it. Their time has come. And that jig is up. And through our virtue, it's our time now. Through Abrahadabra, Om Ha.